I've always been an independent person, making my way in the city, living in a modest yet cozy apartment. Life was simple but fulfilling. Recently, to save expenses, I started buying and selling things on online second-hand marketplaces. It not only saved money but also brought unexpected treasures into my life. Last month, I decided to sell an old TV that I hardly used anymore. I posted ads on several online platforms and quickly got an interested buyer. He was a middle-aged man named Alan, who said he needed just such a TV and was willing to buy it at a fair price. We agreed to meet that evening for the transaction. Little did I know, this decision would stir up my otherwise calm life. Alan arrived around 9:30 p.m. He drove an old sedan and parked it under my apartment building. I could only glimpse his figure from my window, and his hurried movements made me uneasy. Still, I went downstairs to greet him. He looked as I expected from his voice on the phone, middle-aged, dressed casually, but there was something hidden in his gaze. After a brief conversation, he eagerly asked to see the TV. I let him into my apartment. As I showed him the TV, I noticed his eyes drifting outside the window, as if he was looking or waiting for something. His behavior made me extremely uneasy. I tried to keep the conversation going, but he seemed distracted. Suddenly, Alan stopped inspecting the TV. His gaze fixed on my apartment's doorway. I turned to look and saw a stranger standing there. The person was young, wearing a black hoodie with the hood casting a shadow over his face, revealing only cold eyes. He entered without knocking, adding an eerie twist to the scene. Alan's demeanor changed abruptly. His voice turned cold. "We need to finish this deal quickly." My heart raced, feeling an unprecedented fear. I tried to stay calm and asked, "Do you know him? Why is he here?" Alan didn't answer my question. He started inspecting the TV again, signaling me with his eyes not to ask more. A chill ran down my spine. The stranger began looking around my apartment, his hands seemingly clutched around something in his pocket. Realizing the situation might be bad, I pretended to fetch something and discreetly grabbed my phone. I moved quietly towards the kitchen, pretending to search for something, while quickly dialing 911. But just as I pressed the call button, Alan and the stranger started to argue. I heard muffled shouts and chaotic footsteps. My heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. I didn't dare make a sound, hiding in a corner of the kitchen, worried that any small movement would attract their attention. Then, I heard the door being slammed shut. I cautiously stepped out of the kitchen to find the living room empty, and my TV was gone. Apparently, the stranger had taken advantage of the chaos to steal it. This experience left me with a mix of relief and shock. Alan evidently had some connection with this stranger, but they seemed to have a disagreement. I didn't know who they were or what their real intentions were. The police arrived quickly at the scene, but besides my statement and some basic clues, they found little else. Since then, I've never again conducted a transaction alone at night with a stranger, nor have I trusted online buyers so easily. This incident cast a shadow over my life, making me realize the hidden dangers and unpredictability in everyday situations. I don't know how many secrets that night held, secrets that may never be revealed. But I know that from now on, I will be more careful and cautious, no longer letting strangers easily step into my life. On an uneventful weekend evening last month, I was seated on my worn but cozy sofa in my small studio, illuminated by the dim light of my laptop. The studio, though compact, was filled with creative energy, adorned with art pieces I collected during my travels and photographs from my own camera. That night, I decided to post an ad on Craigslist to sell some old photography equipment, hoping to fund an upgrade. Soon after posting the ad, I received a message from a seemingly earnest buyer. He showed great interest in my gear and proposed to meet that very night for the transaction. Normally, I'd be reluctant to make deals at night, but his offer was tempting, and he claimed to live nearby. After some deliberation, I agreed. We decided to meet at a coffee shop near my studio. The streets were unusually quiet that night, with only a few dim streetlights casting long shadows. A sense of unease crept over me as I briskly walked to the coffee shop, a mix of anticipation and anxiety in my heart. Upon arrival, I found the buyer already waiting. He wore a dark hat and his face was partially obscured by a scarf, only his piercing eyes visible, giving him a mysterious and unsettling aura. As we sat down, he began inspecting the camera and lenses I brought. His movements were professional and swift, but he was almost silent, asking only a few technical questions. Despite my efforts to stay calm, an ominous feeling lingered. Just as I was about to ask if he had decided to make the purchase, he abruptly looked out the window, then excused himself to the bathroom and left in a hurry. I waited for a while, but it gradually became clear he might not return. I started packing up my stuff, ready to leave. But as I stepped out of the coffee shop, I felt someone following closely behind. Quickening my pace, I tried to shake off the shadow trailing me. A foreboding feeling overtook me, and I turned into a dimly lit alley, hoping to lose whoever was behind me. In the alley, my footsteps echoed in the silence, and the followers seemed to quicken their pace as well. My heart raced with unprecedented fear. Each step felt like a scene from a suspense thriller, with every shadow seemingly harboring potential threats. I dared not look back, only sensing the presence of the person behind me. The alley's flickering lights cast trembling shadows, adding to the horror of the scene. I began to fear that this person might have ill intentions, that perhaps this was all a carefully orchestrated trap. Finally, I saw the exit leading back to the street. I nearly ran out of the alley, blending into a crowd, hoping to disappear among them. I kept looking back to ensure I wasn't being followed anymore. Fortunately, once I merged with the crowd, the mysterious figure seemed to vanish. I continued my brisk walk back to my studio, filled with unease and confusion. I pondered over the night's events, trying to make sense of what had happened. Safely back in my studio, I took a deep breath, relieved to have escaped the mysterious follower. That night's experience profoundly highlighted the potential risks of online transactions. Since then, I resolved never to meet strangers at night, especially in secluded or unfamiliar places. I became more cautious in handling Craigslist deals, insisting on daytime meetings in public, populated areas. A few days later, I again attempted to sell my photography equipment on Craigslist, but this time with increased precautions. Whenever potential buyers contacted me, I carefully assessed their information to ensure I wouldn't fall into a dangerous situation again. Though the encounter hadn't resulted in any physical harm, it left a lasting impression. I realized the hidden risks and potential dangers behind online transactions. It was a lesson learned. While modern technology brings convenience, it also requires vigilance to avoid unforeseen predicaments. A few months ago, on a quiet evening in my small apartment on the outskirts of the city, I decided to do a thorough spring cleaning. Although my apartment wasn't spacious, it was filled with remnants of life, walls adorned with paintings collected from my travels and bookshelves brimming with beloved old books. During the cleanup, I stumbled upon a forgotten treasure, a delicate antique coffee table. With limited space, I decided to sell it on Craigslist. Soon after posting the ad, I received a response from someone named Tom. He expressed keen interest in the coffee table and asked if he could come over that evening to take a look. Although I was hesitant about conducting a transaction late at night, his offer was fair, and he mentioned living nearby, so I agreed. Tom arrived around 9 p.m. He seemed friendly and casual, wearing a baseball cap and a light jacket. He immediately showed great interest in the coffee table, complimenting its antique quality and craftsmanship. However, as we discussed the table, I noticed him occasionally scanning my apartment, seemingly sizing up the room layout and my personal items. This made me slightly uneasy, but I tried to attribute it to the usual anxiety of dealing with strangers. Our conversation shifted from the coffee table to casual talk about the neighborhood. Initially, Tom's familiarity with the area put me at ease. But then, he started asking more personal questions, inquiring about my living situation and how often I sold items on Craigslist. I became more guarded, giving vague responses, and tried to steer the conversation back to the sale. Just when I thought the transaction was about to conclude, Tom suddenly stood up, stating he needed to use the restroom. I waited in the living room, but as time passed, he didn't return. I began to feel uneasy, and then I heard some faint noises coming from the hallway, as if someone was furtively moving around. I called out Tom's name a few times, but received no response. Feeling increasingly anxious, I decided to check. Approaching the bathroom, I found the door slightly ajar and the room empty. I quickly searched the rest of my apartment but found no sign of Tom. At that moment, I noticed the back door was open, a door I always kept locked. A chill breeze blew in from the open door, and I realized Tom had likely escaped through it. Upon checking the items on my hallway table, I discovered that some valuable trinkets and a watch were missing. My heart sank, realizing this was more than just a simple transaction. Tom, likely an experienced thief, had used a restroom excuse to steal my items and escape through the back door. I felt a deep sense of betrayal and panic. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, reporting the unsettling encounter to the police. The police arrived promptly and began their investigation. They informed me that Tom was likely a criminal who used Craigslist to target victims. The officers advised me to change my locks and be more cautious in future transactions, especially when dealing with strangers from online platforms. This incident completely changed my perspective on online transactions and reminded me of my vulnerability at home. Since then, I've become more cautious, deciding never to meet strangers at my home again. I continued to post ads on Craigslist but took extra safety measures, like meeting in public places to ensure my safety. Though the transaction didn't result in physical harm, it left a deep psychological impact. I realized the hidden risks and potential dangers behind online transactions. I learned a valuable lesson. While modern technology offers convenience, it also requires vigilance to avoid falling into unpredictable dangers.